So before I go ahead, on a scale of 1 to 5, where do you see your energy level this morning, with 5 being the highest? Where do you see your energy level? Just type it in the chat. Type into the chat and let's see how many people have energy level 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to inject more energy into you this morning, as well as more insights, with this short, very short keynote. I'd only care is at energy level 8 out of 1 to 5. That's a good one. All right, thank you very much. All right, so I'm sharing my screen and I'll start with, I know there's been a lot of introduction, but I'll start with something that looks like an introduction, but the reason I'm starting here is because I want to use it to communicate something. So this is me and this is my wife as at 1 week or 2 weeks ago. This picture was taken about 1 week or 2 weeks ago. And Georgina has told you about my background. Of course, there's a few updates to the profile. I've definitely finished my master's in enterprise architecture as 2023, right? Or 2024, thereabout. I have a background in engineering. So, and the reason I mentioned that is your background is very important in shaping the way you think. And it's important that whatever your background is in life, you leverage it. You have to build on what you have rather than, and this is about career growth. So rather than always attempting to branch out too far, try to build on what you have. So I started out my career in engineering, and one of the things I've tried to do is to leverage on those fundamentals, because you cannot spend 5 years, 4 years in school and just throw it away. So I always have that in mind as you pivot to these new technologies, these new career paths. So I have experience in Wi-Fi. I used to climb masts, not masts for telcos, but masts for internet service providers. I've done 120 feet in Port Harcourt. If you know Port Harcourt, we used to have Orbit Wireless there, 120 feet. Yeah, so you climb up, you can see the whole landscape. Trying to install radios, Orinoco radios, YDI, install antennas. I've dropped an antenna before from 20 feet. I've fallen through a roof and hurt my left arm. So those things are part of your shaping, where you start from. And I did that in the very early aspects of my career. And I want to encourage you wherever you are now, it is a stage. You can leverage it for the next stage. Before I left, it was from Orbit Wireless. When I left school, I now joined the same company, the same man doing the company. I joined his company in Abuja, then came to Lagos. We set up a small ISP there, and I was almost alone. Had to ask questions, had to read books. I have crashed a Cisco 1900 router before by doing erase flash. If you're in networking, you know what that means. I set up the switches, the rack, set up a single rack. And when the next person who was taking over me came, he was so grateful because I took time to label every cable. Nobody was watching, nobody was asking for it, but it is just an attitude in wherever stage you are, an attitude that you put into the way you work. I've also been from there, I moved to Airtel Nigeria. I went into the service desk. I was taking phone calls. I was no longer typing code or putting together machines. I was taking phone calls, right? I was taking phone calls. Good morning, service desk. My name is Kenneth Igiri. How may I help you? And I was taking those phone calls, not the call center, but the IT service desk. So my customers were people who are the staff of the organization. I was interfacing between them and the core technical people at the back. You know, technical people, they don't always know how to talk to people, you know. They don't always know how to massage, how to manage the customer. So we learned that in IT, in IT service desk. I took my IT, the first IT exam I took was in 2009, thereabout. Became supervisor of service desk. Then navigated to application support, started supporting something called BMC Remedy, AR system, is the action request system, basically an ITSM or IT service management platform, BMC Remedy, AR system. From there, I got interested. server, and I told you the story before of how I took my exam sometime in 2010, prepared myself for a job opportunity. And a lot of words I'm saying here, I'm going to dig deep into them. A job opportunity in Accra, where they needed someone who was doing SQL Server. I told that story the last time I was here. I worked in as a database engineer for about 7 years in EcoBank eProcess Accra before I switched in 2019 to enterprise architecture. And all the experiences I've listed, both technical and non-technical, are helping me today to shape how I do enterprise architecture. And today I lead a small team. I've led 3 teams in my career in different companies. And I'm also certified in strategy. So I use all this knowledge to help emerging entrepreneurs as well. That's a little about me. And I want you to not just pick oh, this is such a great guy, but I want you to pick the story, the maturity of the story, that it is possible to make these moves. And these days, what I do in the strategy club is try to frame people's thinking so that people can grasp how to make such moves in their context, because our opportunities are not always the same. Our contexts are not always the same, but we can learn how to shape our thinking to leverage our, what we have to gain advantage of the opportunities that are exposed to us in our own context. Did you understand that plenty English I spoke just now? I hope you got that. I hope we're still together. So that's about me. So my career has been shaped by a mix of variables. Some of those variables, I had control over them. I could say, oh, I have to write an exam. Some I did not. I didn't know when Airtel was going to say, we are now outsourcing IT. I didn't know when somebody was going to call from Accra and say, I need a SQL Server expert, right? So there are some aspects you have control over, some you don't. But the point of critical thinking, of strategic thinking, is how do I position myself to gain the best advantage? Now, I deliberately used my wife and I's photo in this presentation because I wanted to also show you something about our own personal journey. This is a very simple journey, and if you're married here, do not put pressure on your wives. It is natural for women to gain a little weight after childbirth and so forth. But the reason I use this example, she has, I think she managed in 1 or 2 months to lose about from about 80 something to about 60 something in terms of her kg, her weight, in about 2 months. Now, when we got married, sometime after we got married, she had crafted a on our 10th anniversary, I am going to fit into my wedding dress again. Now, the reality of life set in, etc., and that became a very, very serious feat. Today, this year is our 10th anniversary, by the way, but this 2-month journey she took happened only last year. And the reason I'm saying this is that sometimes when we embark on transformation, when we decide, I'm going to change my life, I'm going to get into this career, I'm going to chart this course, it's a transformation journey. That transformation journey is often defined by a vision we set for ourselves. My wife said, look, I'm going to fit into my wedding dress at the 10th anniversary. But there is also something else. We are chasing something, chasing a vision. But we may also need that something should be chasing us in order for us to take seriously the vision we've charted. In my wife's case, it was actually some sort of a health challenge. They said, look, this is no longer about just, excuse me, fitting into a dress. This is now about how do I extend my life. So in life, in transformation, the question becomes, yes, you've crafted a vision, but are you conscious of what is chasing you, where you are coming from, the kind of family background you have, the mouth that you have to feed, the nation that is becoming chaotic? Is something chasing you that would make you take more seriously? Because see, we're all accumulating knowledge. The internet is awash with knowledge. So many things are happening. We know a lot. If I ask you to give this presentation, you probably can. because we all have a lot of knowledge. But like I said the last time, knowledge upon which we can take no action is hardly what? Worth having. So the important thing about transformation is like, yeah, we set a vision, we have these goals, we know about all these frameworks, but how can we leverage something in our own context that says something has to chase me for me to move quickly towards this vision, because time is not waiting for me. So let me do another teaser that beyond the one that Tomisin did. If you saw this line, in the streets of your city, whether it is Nairobi or Lagos or Port Harcourt, do you think you would run faster than normal? I want to get opinions. Do you think you will run faster than normal if you just saw this line running around in the streets and you are there? Let me get opinions. We're together. Will you run faster than you normally do? Bishop says, yes, I will run faster if I saw the line and was coming towards me. Of course. Speed of light. Okay, great. So most people will develop, there'll be an adrenaline rush. You may even jump something that you are not previously able to jump because something is chasing you. Motivation is good in this context, but sometimes motivation has to be in the sense of something uncomfortable. Maybe you're in a job role that you really do not like. Maybe your boss is giving you stress. Maybe every month your salary finishes in week 1. And you need to frame that experience and create it as something that is chasing you so that your vision becomes, you become more serious about that vision. That's why I shared that. For all of us, disruption is chasing us. Disruption is here in the IT world. It's chasing us. It's taking away jobs, right? It's changing the way things are done, but it's also creating new options. Life gives us options, and IT also gives us options. I'm going to talk a little about, I'm going to stay here a bit. I'm talking a little about some of these areas which are open to us because of generally the way things have changed over the past 2, 3, 4 decades, from cloud computing to artificial intelligence. So, and I'll tell you a few stories about my own experience, and to be quite interesting. Let's start with a cybersecurity specialist. These are roles that are emerging because of dramatic change in the way technology influences business, right? It is obvious that as you, there's something in cloud computing called a trust boundary, The concept of a trust boundary is that if I'm an organization, when I was in EcoBank, we used to have our own data center. At some point, we said we are going to cloud, right? When you come from having your own data center, you have more control over that boundary because you can secure the edge. You can put all sorts of measures to make sure. You can even put physical security to make sure that people are not going to tamper with all your data, all your systems, all your solutions within your own data center. The moment you embrace any cloud platform, you have extended the trust boundary. You now have to rely on other people to secure your data center physically. You have extended it. You now have to have a certain level of trust for the cloud platform, the hyperscaler that you choose, to make sure that they are doing what is correct in order to secure your perimeter and so forth. So these changes in the way computing is done creates a lot of opportunities for cyber security specialists, and a lot of people are going into it. Both the governance aspect of it and the actual technical aspects of it. And you can almost easily get into that area by doing a few courses, learning about how things work. Some of it actually is based on human behavior, things like social engineering, and people don't know about it. When somebody calls you and says, I sent you a mobile money, please check. I accidentally sent you a mobile money, or please, MTN is doing an upgrade, this and that. I need your code, or please, this is hacker 123. I just got your, I just got your email address. I want you to give me 10 Bitcoins. Here's the address. If you don't, I will post pictures of you naked and so forth and so forth. I don't know. Has anybody experienced anything like that in this place? Social engineering. Social engineering. Somebody trying to convince you to have access to your credentials or to do something for them or make a ransom. If you have, that is, you will discover that that is not so much a technical thing as a psychology thing. So there's an aspect of psychology even in cybersecurity. I hope you can still hear me. Give me a thumbs up, give me a yes if you understood what I said. So the reason I'm mentioning it that way is I'm saying that there's an opportunity for you to get in, because there are many aspects of being a cybersecurity specialist that are not completely technical, and you can learn the rest. The second I'm talking about is the artificial intelligence and machine learning engineer. Obviously, this is probably the most talked about area these days. Generative AI, machine learning, and a lot is going on. In essence, what it is about is you are making machines think like humans. And today, the capacity of machines to think like humans has been greatly amplified by two things. One is the abundance of data that is accessible. The second is the abundance of compute power. The abundance of processing power. So it made it a lot, because I think the AI concept started probably in the 60s, maybe took shape in the 80s. When I was in school, Peter, your video is on. Please be aware of that. Your video is on, Peter. Peter Elo, the video is on. All right, so when I was in school, we were doing something called fuzzy logic. This was about 2004. So at that time, the typical understanding of computing is that it is fundamentally based on ones and zeros, on and off, false and true, Boolean algebra, right? It's two states. Fuzzy logic brought the idea of a range of states. And I'm telling you, I knew about it in 2004, but that doesn't mean it started in 2004. It's a whole theory that has been there for ages. How do we vary the number of states that the computer can think in? And it has been amplified greatly with all sorts of stuff, neural networks, etc., to basically make the system think like a human being and be able to be more creative, more nuanced, rather than just say on or off. So the point I'm making there is that the things that have amplified it today are the abundance of data and the superiority of compute power. And remember Moore's law. Moore's law, it basically states that we are accelerating, we are basically doubling the compute power and miniaturizing the devices that can deliver this power every X number of years. We can't even utilize the amount of power we have effectively right now. The challenge will now be things like governance, things like security, things like the cleanness or the quality of the data and so forth. So this is an emerging area that so many people are also getting into for in different dimensions. The cloud architecture, cloud engineering, there's so much need. In fact, right now, I think that in industry, we're even lacking people who are at expert level in managing hyperscaler systems, in managing cloud systems. Some of us are data scientists or data analysts. There's that level of data scientists, there's that level of data engineers, so many data roles emerging as well. Whether you want to learn something about visualizing, writing code, managing databases or managing data systems, designing data systems, creating pipelines, doing data quality, doing data governance, and so forth. So the point here is that there's that breadth of opportunities just in that area. Generative AI, prompt engineering. A few years ago, let me tell you a funny story about data. I used to be a database admin in SQL Server area as well. And at some point, something came up around NoSQL. when it came up, the idea was that you could have systems that didn't require you to write SQL. This was probably almost 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. But today, people are still writing SQL. People are still writing in Spark, even in Microsoft Fabric, which came up last year or thereabout. We still have to write SQL. So that why I said that is sometimes we're too much in a rush to think that something is going away. It's not that easy for it to go away, because people's organizations have integrated their environments to some of these technologies. So even I know that those of you are data analysts, data scientists, you probably are still writing SQL today. Maybe you're also writing R. Maybe you're also writing Python and so forth. So, but the point is, don't throw away your knowledge. Build upon it. Generative AI, prompt engineering. How can you ask the right questions to the LLM model? That's basically what it's about. Being able to frame your questions correctly so that the LLM model is as useful as possible. The reason I'm deliberately mentioning a lot of these names is for you to go forth and what? Research and say, is this for me? Right? I know that not everyone will be familiar with some of these terms, but we can't teach you all everything in one session. It's the information is available. Maybe all you need is that push to say, this is what this does, dig deeper into it. DevOps, product manager, and I like the DevOps platform. DevOps is basically a way to pipeline your software development, to say, I want to go from development environment to test environment to go live, and I want to do it in a continuous fashion. And there are platforms like Azure DevOps or GitHub that allow you to do that in an automated fashion with approvals, with governance, and there's quite a few rules in that flow. Then the product manager, who basically manages the life cycle of any product you develop. Full stack developers, IT training, and today content creators are taking a lot of money to the bank if they're good enough. There's that creativity that you can even leverage AI to amplify. And of course, you have technology strategists and business analysts, people who are able to translate business strategy to solutions, or translate to tech strategy, or translate requirements to working solutions and so forth. So the disruption we see in IT creates a lot of anxiety, but it also creates a lot of opportunity. And we must now come to a point where we begin to, frame ourselves, prepare ourselves to pursue the opportunities that are created. I didn't mention all of them. There's also robotic process automation. There is human augmentation. There's robotics. There's all sorts of stuff. Augmented reality. I remember we worked on something called Blue Prism back then. That was my first exposure to robotic process automation. And it's basically saying, I want to be able to talk to all the systems and be able to do things automatically that I will have needed people to move data for. So there's integration there. There is workflow automation there, approval processes. For example, somebody, you want to do something as simple as reconciliation. You want to take the data from yesterday's transactions and say, I want to check whether we have paid everyone we were supposed to pay, we have funded the accounts we want to fund, our books are balanced, so you must talk to the ATM system, talk to the AML system, talk to the core banking system, bring it all together and make a decision. It was quite some work, quite some data. And our developers had to work on that. We had to learn a lot about how systems interact. We had to develop confidence that the system was doing the right thing that humans previously did. So Blue Prism, very interesting RPA platform as well. So there are a breadth of options, and it sometimes is mind-boggling. It scares you. But one of the things I tell people is that one of the things you should do is stay focused. Stay focused, and I'll show you a few reasons why in the following slides. Stay focused and stay on a journey, stay on a track. Pivot from where you are to the next track. I'll tell you a story about something called the Gartner hype cycle. The Gartner hype cycle. Gartner creates what we call hype cycles to show organizations what is happening with particular technologies and help them be objective about adoption, because adoption is a serious thing. A new technology comes, some people just rush into it. We call them early adopters, right? A new technology comes, some people say, no, let's wait, let's be moderate. Some people say, look, we're not taking this in the next 10 years. We call them the laggards, right? They just wait till everybody is settled. The reason being that what they're looking at is, from Gartner, is people have great expectations on these technologies, right? And over time, as much as the technology is great, the reason you are adopting technology is to create business value. People begin to learn how the technology actually creates business value in real life and whether that is meaningful to them. It happens over time. So after the initial hype, something drops, and then those who really need to know or should be using that technology, now everything balances out and we go, everybody continues with life. Now, this has happened with technologies like blockchain. How many of you know about blockchain? Please give me a yes or a thumbs up. There was, a few years ago, there was a lot of anticipation about blockchain that is going to make trade transparent. You're going to be able to trace where our food is coming from. One of my friends in South Africa was doing it still does it anyway, correlated blockchain. He was tracking hair extensions from China up till South Africa to determine whether it's real human hair. But one of the problems with a truth system like that, especially in Africa, a truth system that everything is transparent, is not centralized, it is distributed system. You use consensus to make decisions about transactions. The part of the problem with that is that people generally don't like truth. How many of you agree with me? We generally don't like truth. We don't like everything to be exposed there. Sometimes we like flexibility of, cutting corners, right? Those established forces, like the banks, they wouldn't like you to push them out of the market to do distributed transactions based on peer-to-peer relationships, right? Governments, people who are helping themselves with 10%, 20%, by the time you make the whole transactions transparent like that, the 10% and 20% goes away. And even that 10% itself funds the whole economy among their relatives and friends. So I hope you get the point. There is that hype of initial expectations, but the reality sets in, the hype drops more. And this happens with technology that's happened for decades. So the reason why this hype cycle is there to help organizations decide, I shouldn't decide or take a position that is not adopting too early or giving up what they were doing before too soon. Remember I told you about no SQL, right? Or adopting too late when everybody has begun already out-competed them in the market using that technology. So there's a balance, there's a sweet spot that you adopt so that others won't go, go ahead of you. Or what's the third one? There's the fourth one. I had a typo there. So in general, this, as it applies to organizations, applies to you as a professional too. There's something you're already doing, and somebody says, we now have AI, then you abandon it completely and start AI. When the hype cycle drops, you discover that there are so many AI specialists that there are no more AI roles. Did you get that? Did you get that? Did you get what I just explained? Please let me know if it makes sense to you. Does it make sense to you? All right, the thumbs up are getting fewer. Maybe my language is now switching to Hebrew and Greek. I hope my language is still English. It's still getting me. All right, thank you, Kwa. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please come again. Yes, this is okay. So let me come again. Thank you for being straightforward with that. So what I said, this hype cycle is for organizations. It tells them, and I'll show you an example soon. It tells them a new technology has emerged, right? A new technology has emerged. People are excited about it. So the excitement starts to rise. It starts to rise like this, right? At some point, people begin to realize, and I'll use this next slide to show it. People need to begin to realize there's what we call the peak of inflated expectations. What people want this technology to do, they're expecting too much, and then it begins to drop. They begin to go down to what we call the trough of disillusionment. They realize that this thing is not for me. It's not going to do what I say. There are too many risks. Today we're talking about deep fakes, and this morning I watched a video about the fact that deep fakes are becoming even harder to recognize, right? So the point there is that what the expectation we originally had about this technology, it dropped. So only a few people remain. A few organizations really figure out how best to use the technology. Then that's what we call the slope of enlightenment, and they are able to really be productive with the technology. The fact that you have technology doesn't mean that you're going to be productive with it. So it comes, I now juxtapose it to your own career. There's something you're already doing now. Don't be in too much of a hurry to ditch it because there's a new technology, because there's that hype phase. The second thing I said is that don't be too late in adopting, so late in adopting that other people outcompete you, and use the technology you are waiting too long to mature to advance their own careers. The third thing I want to point out to you is always think of how technology creates business value. How does your career as a member, as a cybersecurity specialist, or an AML engineer, cloud engineer, AI engineer, how does it really add business value? You must always bring that value to the table rather than just saying, I know AI, I know data, I know this, I know that. Map it to value. I hope it's a bit clearer. A bit clearer? All right. This is an example of a hype cycle for emerging technology. This was done 2024, and I'll show you what they are saying here. They are saying here that if you look at the bottom, did Peter raise his hand? Let me just explain this a bit and can come. Look at the bottom. It tells you when the plateau is the plateau of what? Plateau of productivity, right? Will be reached. So we're saying something like machine GitOps or GitHub operations. That's what it is. These are all emerging technologies. So you can take this screenshot of this, research on them deeply. The real productivity will be reached in less than 2 years, right? Then they tell you, let's just pick one. Let's look at where's AI is the popular one. Okay, generative AI, real productivity will be reached in 2 to 5 years. And I want to give a caveat here. Remember that a lot of this research is done in advanced countries, Europe and America. So you also want to ask yourself, how do I interpret this in my context? Trust me, I heard of a bank a few years ago in South Africa that still uses COBOL. If you are in computing, you will know about COBOL, which was a programming language of the 80s. You can't see the slide. I hope we can all see the slides. Who can't? Please let me know if you can see the slide. Thumbs up. Yes, Juliet. I think, yeah. So Nika, maybe you want to jump in and out. Now, so people are still using COBOL. So in essence, as much as the generality of research shows us that these technologies are advancing seriously, some companies are still using very simple things to do their work. So don't throw away what you know already. Build on it. Merge it. I was in a project conversation with a very big consulting company working for a very big nonprofit, and they were using Excel to do the project management, the tasks, the assignments, who should do this. I was really shocked because we have Teams, we have Asana, we have Microsoft Project, we have Monday.com, we have Jira, all sorts of project management tools, all sorts, but they were still using Excel because in the context of that work, Excel was probably the best tool. So the ClickUp, yeah, so many emerging technologies to use to do both project and product management, but they choose the age old. So the point there is, don't think that everybody has suddenly become AI aware. Your skills might still be relevant to somewhere, depending on how good you are. Look at another one. Let me see another interesting one. We've talked about generative AI, autonomous agents, 5 to 10 years. You may have heard of agentic AI, where the robot is basically doing things without being told, right? And it's Satya Nadella came up last year and said the next revolution for AI is the agentic AI. Really, the guy is not self-aware, but almost knows what to do based on data, and you don't have to prompt it. You don't have to say give it a command. It just does what it needs to do in context and takes decisions. It says 5 to 10 years. Now, 10 years is a significant portion of somebody's career. 10 years, if your career is 30 years, 10 years is 1/3 of it. And I mentioned the story of what do you call it? NoSQL. Almost 10 years ago, people were saying NoSQL, and we thought that SQL was going to go away completely, but it's still here. In other words, strike the balance between the rush for new technology and the need to consolidate on what you already know, because it's harder to learn new skills. It's good to learn new skills. It's good to branch off, but branch off in a way that gives you an advantage. Branch off in a way that leverages what you already know and builds up on it. You are still relevant to someone, right? Branch off intelligently. Your sweet spot is at the intersection of your training, what you're good at, what you've been trained in, what you've read about, what you've developed yourself in. The demand for that skill set, remember all the skill sets we've mentioned, those are the ones in demand, but you must ask yourself, which one can I quickly gain training in? Because time is not waiting for you, right? And the reward, how much do I want to earn with this skill? So there's that sweet spot. I use this illustration in my course, Career Growth Strategies in Information Technology. Career Growth Strategies in Information Technology. Career Growth Strategies in Information Technology. I use it in that course, and that is that intersection where you are balancing what you know, because you can't do everything. You can't know everything. Even if you say, I must learn, you can't say, I must learn this because it's the latest thing. You must learn what fits into your capacity, because that's where you have a greater advantage of success. You must also learn what is in demand, but you must not say that simply because it's in demand, I just go that way. No, there's that interesting sweet spot between training, what you're good at, your reward, what you want to earn, what is the potential earning power, and what is in demand. Very, very interesting outlook, right? I'll soon be over with that. One of the ways to evaluate yourself is something called SWOT. We use the SWOT in the interactive ideation session, and there's a whole lot of talk about SWOT in tscafrica.com platform, where we basically say it's a thinking tool to assess yourself. What are my intrinsic strengths? What are my intrinsic weaknesses? The things that are inside me, that are part of me. Am I quiet or am I loud? Right? Am I a good leader, or I do well with supporting leaders? Right? Can I take risks? I'm more measured. So this is a sample. Then the bottom part talks about the opportunities and threats. Are there job opportunities? Today, like I said, there are a lot of opportunities, but you must match the opportunities with your strengths, right? If you have weaknesses, you use your weaknesses to overcome use your strengths to overcome your weakness, or to navigate your weaknesses. If there are threats in your way, you position yourself to eliminate threats. In those days, there were a lot of people doing Oracle databases. Competition was high. In order to address that, I had to find a spot in SQL Server, because you are able to take advantage of an area where not too many people are playing. That's how one of the ways you address competition. If everybody is going there, then competition is high, especially when the opportunities are not enough. So this is an example of basically using a tool to assess yourself, because you need to understand yourself to leverage the opportunities out there that are being caused by disruption, while that thing is chasing you towards your vision, whatever it is that's chasing you, that lion, right? While it's chasing you, you must analyze yourself. Then match your strengths to the opportunities, to the realities of your environment. Then take a position that is focused. Finally, I'm going to do last 2 slides. Am I boring? Am I still interesting? Please tell me. Tell me. Are we together? Are we still together? Okay, so I just have 2 or 3 slides to go, and I'm done. We're going to talk about choices. Yes, choices. Yes, Good Friday. You raise your hand. You have a question. Maybe you type it in the chat. Let me just wrap up, then I'll come back to it. Choices. We all have to make choices. And I've talked about the fact that there's so much out there going on. But we have to choose where we stand. We have to focus somewhere. Sometimes there are choices you make in life are trivial. Some are critical. The choice about your career path is a critical choice. You must be deliberate about it. You must assess yourself properly. You must take up a path that makes sense for you, right? You must understand what you're losing by making one choice over the other. So your choices must be intentional. In the world of strategy, we say that strategy is they are making an integrated set of choices that positions you that puts you in a position of advantage. In an intentional or integrated set of choices that puts you in a position of advantage. For your choices to be integrated or integrative, they must be intentional. Integrative means they all make sense together. For example, if my background is in, if I say I want to be a data expert, then the courses I'm taking must be in that area. The communities I belong to must be in that area, right? And maybe the books I'm reading. I mean, that's a very simple example to say the choices you're making must fit well together based on the vision you've carved out for yourself. They must be intentional, they must be integrative. And a career choice is something very deliberate that you want to make. Excuse me. All right, so choices. Now, in making those choices, what I have basically done, I'm going to show you something called the FIRA cycle, right? But I want to kind of like summarize what I've said so far in this view. Just memorize it. The first thing is the definition, your definition of success. Remember, I started with the story about my wife who said, I'm going to fit into my wedding gown on my 10th anniversary. And the next is what is the external environment looking like? Competitive forces basically relate to your opportunities and then the threats in your environment. That says, look, what is chasing me? Who am I running with? Who is also chasing what I'm chasing, right? What is the government saying? What is industry saying? What are the job opportunities out there? The ones I showed you just a few years earlier. Then you evaluate your advantage. Am I good enough to be a cybersecurity expert? Am I good enough to be a data analyst? Why do I think I'm good enough? SWOT analysis, right? Analyze the environment. What opportunities is life presenting me? Excuse me. What opportunities is life presenting me with? What are the threats? Then you now use this information to tailor your approach. How am I going to get to where I'm going to, in my context? This is not about somebody living in America is a different experience. Somebody living in China, a different experience. Somebody who has a tech background or engineering background like myself is one experience. Somebody who does not, who has an art background trying to shift is another experience. So we can't tell you exactly what to do, but we can tell you how to think to arrive at what to do. Make sense? Does that make sense? Before I wrap up, does that make sense? Good? Awesome. Good one. Awesome. Then let me talk about this FIRA cycle. Remember 4 words. Focus. I've talked about it in this session. Immersion, repetition, accumulation. Now, for anything you want to learn, any direction you want to go at, one of the things I advise is identify, maybe it's top 3 groups I should be in. Some people are in 300 groups. The number of groups you are in, that's not networking. That's just confusion. So you need to identify the groups that make sense for where you're going and say, okay, 2, 3, 4. So I can be really, really what? Immersed. You need to identify the knowledge that makes sense for what I'm going so that I can really, really what? immerse in it, right? The books I should be reading, the people I should be listening to, immerse yourself. That's what gives you an advantage. Then create a cycle of repetition. Do I read this every day? Do I watch these videos every day? Do I attend this conference every year? Do I attend MyDreamConnect every month? A cycle of repetition keeps accumulating value. Accumulate value. At some point, someone will notice you. Someone noticed my accumulation of value on LinkedIn in 2023. He called me from South Africa and said they have an enterprise architect role. Accumulation of value takes a bit of time, but it can work. So understand that accumulation works in so many things, both positive and negative. So the question you ask is, what am I accumulating? Am I accumulating sugar, accumulating books, accumulating money? What am I accumulating? Keep going through this cycle. But the first thing starts with what? Focus. There's so much going on, so much VUCA, so much disruption, so much information, so much hype, but focus and stay on course. And then I think you'll be able to get where you're going to. We talk about this and a lot more in what we call TSC Africa. TSCAfrica.com is a platform we created to basically, I just want to offload myself there. Strategy for emerging entrepreneurs, for career professionals, for young and ambitious persons. Once a month, we had a Q&A so that as you're learning, you have an opportunity for us to basically interact and apply the learning to your context. So it's something that if you want to look at, you look at it, and we can dig in more. So let me take questions. I think we're taking questions later. Am I correct? I know I've spoken for a long time.
Yes, it's a Q&A session after, so maybe I can encourage the audience to just write down your questions, and then our Coach Kenneth will be there to answer them.